The most searched question about Avengers Doomsday right now is not about the cast, not about the plot, and not about Doctor Doom. It's this. Can it beat Infinity War? Hundreds of fans are debating it on Reddit as we speak. And I want to give you my honest answer. Because I think the real question isn't whether Doomsday can beat Infinity War. It's whether it needs to. So, let's get straight into it. To understand what we're actually comparing, we need to go back to what Infinity War and Endgame really were. Infinity War was released in 2018, 10 years after Iron Man. It was the payoff to 22 interconnected films. 22! Every movie from Phase 1 through Phase 3 had been building, sometimes quietly, sometimes directly, toward Thanos and the Infinity Stones. The audience had spent a decade investing in these characters. They knew Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, Thor, Natasha Romanoff. They'd watched them grow, fail, and fight back together. By the time Infinity War arrived, there was nothing left to explain. Everyone was already bought in. The result? Infinity War made $2.04 billion worldwide. Endgame made $2.8 billion. Still the second highest grossing film in cinema history. Now, those numbers didn't happen because Marvel suddenly made two incredible films. They happened because of everything that came before. The storytelling investment paid its dividend all at once, and the result was a cultural event that people have been talking about ever since. Fans wept when the snap happened. They cheered when the portals opened. I generally think those two moments are among the most emotionally powerful in modern cinema. So when people ask whether Doomsday can match that, I understand the question. But I think they're measuring the wrong thing. Because Doomsday is not in the same position Infinity War was. And once you see exactly why, it completely changes how we should be judging this film. Here's the honest reality. The multiverse saga, phases 4 and 5, has not built up to Doomsday the way the Infinity Saga built up to Infinity War. The most upvoted comment in the biggest Reddit thread on this exact topic says it better than I can. There's basically been no build. The other ones had like 22 movies of build. That comment has over 250 upvotes. And I think the fans are right. Think about what Doomsday's equivalent build-up looks like. A significant chunk of the story threads leading into this film were told through Disney Plus shows. Loki, WandaVision, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Secret Invasion. And the uncomfortable truth is that the general audience has not watched all of them. A casual Marvel fan who loved Infinity War but hasn't kept up with every Disney Plus series is going to walk into Doomsday with significant gaps in their knowledge. That's a problem Infinity War never had. And then there's a quality issue. Now, I do think phases 4 and 5 are more mixed than people give them credit for. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was brilliant, and Deadpool and Wolverine was a massive hit. But several releases genuinely struggled. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania was supposed to introduce Kang as the next Thanos, and it didn't land. Kang, the character who was meant to be Doomsday's equivalent of Thanos, has since been replaced entirely by Doctor Doom because of off-screen circumstances. That's not a clear narrative setup. The general audience noticed. So the honest answer is no. Avengers Doomsday will almost certainly not beat Infinity War's $2.04 billion. Most analysts are projecting somewhere between $1.4 billion and $1.8 billion worldwide. Strong enough to be one of the biggest films of 2026, but well short of the Infinity War benchmark. There are also some very specific practical factors working against it. And one of those factors is something that almost nobody is talking about. Yet it could cost Doomsday hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office before a single ticket is sold. Let me walk you through the three practical headwinds Doomsday is facing. First, no IMAX. This is a big one. The film was originally scheduled for May 2026 with IMAX screens. That release was moved, and Doomsday is now releasing on December 18th, 2026, without IMAX. The CEO of IMAX has publicly stated, and I'm not paraphrasing here, that Disney's response to losing the IMAX deal is a marketing play to try and offset the fact that they don't have an IMAX platform. Now, IMAX didn't account for enormous portions of Infinity War or Endgame's growths. Roughly $145 and $212 million respectively out of their total billions. So this isn't a fatal blow, but it is a headwind, and it signals tension between Marvel and one of the premium format partners it benefited from in the Infinity Saga era. Second, competition. Doomsday is releasing into a crowded December window, with June 3 also targeting a similar audience in the same period. In 2018 and 2019, Infinity War and Endgame had relatively clear runs. That's not the case here. Third, the post-COVID box office is completely different. The data consistently shows that the market that existed before 2020 has not fully returned for non-franchise films. But even for franchise films, the ceiling has dropped. Multiple Reddit users in the box office community have pointed out that a 0% chance of matching Endgame exists partly for this structural reason alone, independent of anything Marvel does creatively. Does all of this mean Doomsday is going to fail? Absolutely not. And this is where I think the conversation needs to shift. Because I think people are measuring Doomsday against the wrong film entirely. And when you compare it against the right benchmark, the picture looks very different. The right comparison for Avengers Doomsday is not Endgame. It's not even Infinity War. It's the first Avengers film. Think about it. Doomsday is a new team assembled against a new threat in the aftermath of a major reset. The original Avengers in 2012 assembled a team that many general audiences hadn't fully invested in yet, and it made $1.5 billion. That's the benchmark. And based on what we know about Doomsday's lineup, the Russo Brothers back in the director's chair, Robert Downey Jr. returning as Dr. Doom, Pedro Pascal, Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, Thor, the Fantastic Four, and the X-Men, a $1.5 to $1.8 billion result wouldn't be a failure. It would be a massive, culturally significant film. And there are reasons to be genuinely excited. The Russo brothers directed The Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. Stephen McFeely, who co-wrote Infinity War and Endgame, is back on the script alongside Michael Waldron. Those are not people who make average films. Tom Hiddleston has teased that Doomsday has the same energy as Infinity War. All I can tell you is, and the fan reaction to that tease got over 3,000 upvotes. Here's something I believe most strongly. Doomsday is not meant to be the endgame of this saga. It's meant to be the Infinity War. The real payoff, the one that could approach those box office records, is Secret Wars. If Doomsday lands creatively, if it ends on a devastating cliffhanger that has audiences desperate for resolution, then Secret Wars becomes the cultural event that Endgame was. The formula is exactly the same. Doomsday just has to do its job, which is to set the stakes and make people desperate for part 2. I'm not entirely sure it will reach $2 billion, but I generally think it can be a brilliant film. And a brilliant film that makes $1.6 billion and sets up Secret Wars perfectly, that's a win. That's the MCU getting its footing back. So, can Avengers Doomsday beat Infinity War? Probably not. But should that be the bar? I don't think so. Endgame was a once-in-a-generation cultural event built over 11 years. Measuring everything against it is a bit like saying every new Star Wars film has failed because it didn't beat The Force Awakens domestically. The question worth asking is whether Doomsday can be great on its own terms. And with the Russo Brothers, Robert Downey Jr. as Doom, and what looks like the biggest assembled cast in MCU history, I think there's a very real chance it can. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope this video helped you make sense of the conversation happening right now. If you enjoyed this video, I'd also highly recommend my breakdown of how Marvel's first family holds the key to Avengers Doomsday. It goes deep into the comic history between the Fantastic Four and the Avengers, and exactly what Dr. Doom has planned. I'll link it on the end screen, so make sure you check that out next. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss my full breakdown when the trailer drops. Anyway guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now!